This time I will be talking about reasons to scrape Google instead of using their official API. Uh, it's kind of hard to talk about something on the podcast by myself instead of answering someone else's questions, but we'll see. So Google have their own API and they provide an access to search engine results, but some people still scrape Google. Why? The reason is Google's search API provides data only for 100 of search results, and they provide data not in real time. Also, they don't provide data for SERP features like knowledge graph, answer box, like featured snippet. Also, they don't provide data for use results, Google Shopping, Google Maps, and for other services. And also, as I've already said, the data from their official API is not real time, and also kind of likes most of the data. And to understand why it's a problem, we want to understand reasons to actually scrape. Basically, people scrape and use Google's API for several use cases. It's SEO, it's open source intelligence, also news monitoring, and also some kind of machine learning data gathering, and also a bit of virtual assistant, AI assistant. Let's go through all of these use cases, and then we can understand why Google's official API is not usable for these ones. For like the most common use case is positional ranking of organic results. So, for example, some brands or SEO agencies that manage multiple brands want to track rank of the positions of inorganic results of some websites for some specific keywords. They do it, they get the data from Google each hour or each day and record the position in organic results. And by organic results, I mean the data that is not the results in search that are not paid. Because on the top and the bottom of the search results, there are some paid results. Another use case is news monitoring. So Google search results has top stories that are kind of extracted from Google News itself, and also they highlight Twitter results, they highlight some other featured snippets. Another use case is getting data from other Google services like Google Maps or Google Shopping or Google Images. For example, for Google Shopping, there is another use case that I haven't talked about. It's e-commerce competitor research. And for Google Images is data gathering for machine learning most commonly. And I have to think about it. It's fine to have pauses on live stream, yeah. Yep, let's go back to the Google search itself instead of its other services. So I've talked about SEO use case, and there are other use cases like AI assistant. Uh, Google provides featured snippet on the top of search results. Whenever Google sees a question about that ends that like a search query that looks like a question, Google tries to provide an answer on the top of search results, and they usually highlight some of the sentences, or they have bold text on top of the description itself. And there are several kinds of search queries that people, not usually, but sometimes get the data from Google to provide their like kind of own solution with machine learning. For example, it's weather forecasting or translation, or what else? For Google Flights on search. Also fact check or calculator. There are several applications that use that featured snippet from Google to like reuse data from Google. Yes. And another use case is getting data from the knowledge graph from Google. Like Google's knowledge graph has like a knowledge graph, some interesting data that's not available on their official API. For example, they have profiles section. Also, they have like by profiles, I mean social media profiles. Yeah, it's so cool that when like there is no audience at all and I can do whatever I want. Like, so yep, I need some editing after it. So, and to also cut some words like so. Knowledge graph have data about profiles or like social media profiles or user reviews or available times for some local places and stuff like that. Also, another use case for SEO that I forgot to mention is keyword research. Google have in its search and results pages stuff like people also ask blog. It's like it's a looks like select box. Usually there are 3 or 4 select boxes in the middle or at the near to the top of the page, where they like suggest something that is similar to the search query that user has entered. And this kind of data can be and it is being used by SEO people to find keywords that can be used in their blog posts or in their content to be ranked on Google. Like, also there are related questions and related queries. Usually they're at the bottom of the page and sometimes they're at the top of the page. Also, there is Google's autocomplete, like whenever on the page user is typing some keywords, Google provides auto suggestions, and it's also used for keyword research. And also there is Google Trends, but it's kind of like separate. So there are all of those kinds of data that is used by people for different purposes, but none of it, except some part of organic results, is being provided by Google's official API. I guess that's it. And there are several services. There are several services that provide an like easy access to this kind of data. Let's talk about different ways to get to scrape Google, like there are several ways to scrape Google, and I will talk about all of them briefly. One way is to use like some browser extension that provide some like visual. It's called visual scraping. So there are three ways to scrape Google. Manual scraping. By manual, I mean manually copy pasting. Then automated web scraping. And I mean programmatic access. And the third way is to buy some third-party service. Manual scraping is fine if we want to get the data rarely and in small number, like in small volume. Programmatic access is fine if you find to program, and there are lots of people who are fine to with programming. And the like simplest for some simplest way to get the data is to use third-party provider. How to scrape Google? It looks like pretty simple task. Like make the request, parse HTML, use any HTML traverse library, find needed selectors and or expat, and extract the data and save it somewhere. It can be done in most of the programming languages, and for most of them there are open source tools that are available already. And if we talk about third-party service, it's like I can talk about SERP API because I work at SERP API. And SERP API provides data for Google, not provides data for Google. SERP API provides access to data from Google, from Bing, from Baidu, Yahoo, Walmart, eBay, Home Depot, and other search engines and big e-commerce websites. And the reason to use third-party service like SERP API instead of programming it manually is not clear for like someone who haven't tried to scrape search engines at large scale. Like we will have another another episode of the podcast when in which we will talk about difficulties on scraping Google and other search engines, and also ways to avoid such difficulties. But briefly talking about it, search engines don't want to be scraped. Like they want, like they have their public data, and then they want people to either use your API, which is not complete, or I don't know, like, but the problem with writing a web scraping tool on the large scale is search engines are blocking requests, and to bypass blocking, there are several most common ways. One of them is like not one of them, like there are like several ways that should be combined to provide good success rate. First of all is to use high quality proxies. Second one is to try to, how to say it, is try to make requests most that looks like a browser, like a real request. And the final one is related to the previous one. It's about avoiding captcha. It's also like about avoiding being blocked. And sometimes there are legal risks, but I'm not a lawyer, but in United States, web scraping of public data is considered legal, and for like not extra reasons, like whenever customers want some legal protection, SERP API provides legal US Shield service. Yep. It's almost midnight right now, and it's kind of hard to me to talk about scraping Google, but I didn't want to miss that episode, and I decided to record it by myself. So, wrapping up and summarizing, reason to scrape Google instead of using their API is to get the data that is missing on their API, and Google's search API, official API, provides data for only small use cases that are small. I even don't know like why anyone would want to use their official API like for use cases that I talked about, like SEO, open source intelligence, competitor research, news monitoring. None of these can be covered by Google's official API. I mean Google Search official API. So that's the reason to scrape Google. And in the future episodes, we will have a better version of this podcast, probably with some co-host or guest who will ask me or who will be asked by me, and we will have a conversation instead of me trying to discuss some question with myself. Thanks for watching and see you later.